Good morning. If you have viewed any of my past video blogs, perhaps you recognize that my criticism and displeasure is directed mostly toward the shameful state of the American press corps. Mainstream media seems to be fascinated with their own celebrity. Mainstream media is no longer interested in presenting objective reports. No, the U.S. broadcast and print media today seem to have dedicated themselves to influence their subscribers' opinion to fit the narrative of the so-called progressive left. The dedication and skill that they possess makes the old Soviet Union propaganda outlets of Pravda and TASS look like amateurs. Now, in case you think I'm simply a confused and or paranoid old man, allow me to present Exhibit A, the death of Fidel Castro and the warm eulogies being presented on the airwaves and newspapers regarding his place in history. Now, as I quote some of the things that I've heard and seen, you will see some links offered here that document the style of Castro's leadership. Now, if you're viewing this and you think he was simply a benevolent dictator, do yourself a favor. Pull up some of these links, or better yet, Google yourself. Go Google Castro atrocities and find your own links. And now you might do that with some haste before all of this is determined to be fake news. But let me offer just a couple of highlights of what you will find if you take a moment to search for the truth. First of all, after Castro took power in Cuba, he jailed and tortured political prisoners at a higher rate than did Stalin during his purges in the Soviet Union. Fidel Castro murdered more Cubans in his first 3 years in power than there were Germans murdered by Hitler in his first 6 years. Another fact is that 50 years before ISIS, Fidel Castro and his pal Che Guevara were filming their murders for media shock value. Now, also please remember that in the early 1960s, the world came within an eyelash of a doomsday nuclear war because of offensive nuclear weapons Castro was allowing to be staged in Cuba. And let's not forget the Cuban boat people. These were men and women so desperate to escape Castro's despotic leadership that they took to the high sea in boats that were not even fit for a pond in a park. Many of them, along with children, drowned or were eaten by sharks. Now, Castro's military assisted in the dirty work at times. Check this one out. Now, there were also humanitarian Cuban exiles living in the United States who would try to help these distressed boat people. And in a characteristic exhibition for his concern for humanity, Fidel Castro ordered MiG jet fighters to shoot down these private Cessna airplanes. 2 were indeed downed, and those pilots perished. Now, with all those things in mind, here are just a few of the warm eulogies that we've heard from our celebrity media watchdogs. Chris Matthews, he referred to Castro as a romantic figure and a folk hero to most of us. Most of us, yeah. Meet the Press invited Helena Cooper of the New York Times, and she suggested that any negative view of Castro was simply America-centric. Now, one of the panelists suggested that this ignored the facts that Castro's dictatorship killed and imprisoned domestic opponents and supported terrorist groups around the world. Ms. Cooper doubled down on her anti-American-centric stance. Jim Avila of ABC called Castro the Cuban George Washington. Yeah, Jim. Right after the American Revolution, good old George rounded up thousands of Tories. He had them executed or sent to prison camps. Yeah, that's what happened, I'm sure. And then, of course, Andrea Mitchell on the Today Show reminisced warmly about her interviews with Castro and described him as well-read, intelligent, Oh, and connected with young people. Now, she did indeed acknowledge that there had been no free elections in Cuba since Castro took over, but nothing was mentioned about the atrocities like this one. But it doesn't stop. The Associated Press, PBS, all the rest of them, they were mourning the loss of their beloved Fidel Castro. All at the same time, these talking heads are suggesting that Donald Trump is a racist and a tyrant in the making. Just makes you wonder, is the Donald about to construct some prison camps and organize firing squads? The left is always demonizing America for mistakes in the past and downplaying the progress that we have made. Why is it that they seem to be overlooking Castro's past mistakes? The left calls Bush 43 a war criminal. If that's so, why is Castro not a war criminal? But I guess we need to keep in mind that everybody has a positive side. Even Osama bin Laden has a positive side. He was and still is beloved by a huge segment of the Islamic world. Could it be that our hunting him down and killing him was simply America-centric? Let's face it, Mr. bin Laden had many positive accomplishments. For example, he's directly responsible for improving airport security measures around the globe. But let me close here with a couple of questions. Is it more worrisome that the left seems to be okay with killing and imprisoning their political opponents, or that the press overlooks that fact? And one more question, perhaps not as dark as that content, but I really would like to know, now that Fidel Castro is dead, is he eligible to vote in Chicago? Inquiring minds want to know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Peace.